Tonight on B10 o'clock news, a record number of deaths from the coronavirus this week throughout the state of Florida, with over 2,400 deaths added. This as a local TikToker pleaded for people to get vaccinated in her final post from a hospital bed.
Don't wait. Go get it. Because hopefully, if you get it, then you won't end up in the hospital like me.
That was Megan Blankenfiller, and her family is telling News4Jax that the 31-year-old lost her battle with the virus late last month.
As the number of deaths rise, Florida is starting to see a number of new cases for COVID drop. Our News4Jax team is looking at the trends and the people to get more, the push that is to get more people vaccinated. We're starting with reporter Renee Beninati, who talked with Blankenbiller's sister and several of her close friends. Renee.
Megan's loved ones tell me she was selfless, so much so that they weren't surprised that during the last days of her life, she shared this video on TikTok trying to save others.
Hey guys, so I don't have a lot of energy for talking.
Megan Blankenbiller recording this video on TikTok from her hospital bed. Despite being on oxygen and struggling to talk, she pleaded for the public to get their COVID vaccines.
I did not get vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax. I was just trying to do my research. I was scared.
Her sister, Christina Blankenbiller, tells me less than a week later, she was on a ventilator. Less than 2 weeks after this video was posted, she died from COVID.
It was hard to watch.
Ashley McKellis and Blankenbiller sang together in their a cappella group called the Jack's Treblemakers. To her friends and on TikTok, this alto singer went by Alex. Here she is performing back in 2018.
She was one of those people that could absolutely change the energy in a room and light up the room as soon as she walked in.
These memories of Blankenbiller's last days of her life have gone viral on social media with close to 1 million views. Some users even commenting her story inspired them to get their shots. Her friends and family hope this message is heard.
I do think it was a mistake. I shouldn't have waited. I think if you are even 70% sure that you want the vaccine, go get it.
Megan's family is hoping that by sharing her story, it will help save lives. Coming up tonight at 11, we'll share how dozens of people commented on this video saying they went out and got the vaccine because they heard about her story. Reporting live in Jacksonville, Renee Beninati, Channel 4, the local station.
What a sad story. And folks, it shouldn't take a story like that to go protect yourself and those you love. Good morning and welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. From the onset of the global pandemic, about 18 months ago, Dr. Ebony Hilton emerged as a leader and a powerful voice of reason. A critical care anesthesiologist, doctor at the University of Virginia and founder of Good Stock Consulting, LLC, Dr. Hilton has loudly denounced quick reopenings, anti-vaxxers, and reckless gatherings during the pandemic. She's also taken on the governor of Florida and other powerful leaders for their reckless comments and behavior. Through her Twitter account, which has an ever-growing list of followers, and her appearances with the Black press and major media outlets, she's now a medical correspondent for MSNBC and NBC News, and she's also appeared on CNN. She has provided reality checks for people around the globe. We're going to talk to Dr. Ebony Hilton this morning. But first, the news. Senate Democrats reportedly are expected to announce as early as today that they reached a deal on an updated version of the For the People Act. The voting rights legislation the party believes now has the full support of all Democratic senators. The member-level discussions are complete, a source said, adding that staff members are going through the text to fix technical issues. And late last night, they also reached a deal with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who is now signed on to this. However, Democrats still need 10 Republican votes, unless, of course, they either abolish or fix that racist filibuster law. The For the People Act, of course, would make, among other things, Election Day a national holiday. Also in the news this morning, in one of her last social media postings, actress Tanya Fear retweeted a tribute by Courtney B. Vance to the late Michael K. Williams. She said, "Michael has found peace. He was a giant of a man. Only my faith sustains me in times like these." The September 6th social media post was among the last anyone has heard from Fear. The actress has been reported missing in Los Angeles. Reports suggest that concerns continue to grow for the 31-year-old who stars in Doctor Who. Fear's family reportedly hasn't heard from her since Thursday, September the 9th. The hashtag Find Tanya Fear continues to trend while family and loved ones pray for the best. Please, please, please share if you have mutually, if you live in the LA Hollywood Bowl area. One of her cousins tweeted out, she says, "My cousin is missing. She has no family in the US and we're all really worried." Of course, Tanya Fear is originally from Great Britain. A poster circulating on social media says she went missing in the LA Hollywood Bowl area. She played the role of Dr. Jade McIntyre in a 2008 episode of Doctor Who. She's also appeared in films A Moving Image, Kick-Ass 2, and Spotless. And the NFL kicked off its 2021 season this past week, and Maya Shaka has made history as the first Black woman to officiate an NFL game. She officiated Sunday's game between the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers and called it a proud moment. She says, "This historic moment to me is an honor and it's a privilege that I've been chosen to represent women and women of color in the most popular sport in America, proving that I can defy the odds and overcome." She says she hopes she can inspire and empower others to step outside the box and do something different. She is the second woman hired as a full-time NFL official. So congratulations again. We had her on the program earlier this year, and she was very excited with the prospects of opening the season this year as an official, a full-time official. Dr. Ebony Hilton, what more can we say about Dr. Hilton? She is going to be the recipient of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Leadership Award, which honors and salutes Black excellence, those who take the lead in the community and go beyond the call of duty. She certainly has done that. We welcome this morning the fantastic, the fabulous Dr. Ebony Hilton. Good morning, Dr. Hilton.
Yeah, good morning to you. How are you?
Doing great. It's always great to see you, that's for sure.
Good. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Hilton, let's just jump in. First of all, I know you saw that video that we showed at the beginning. Your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, it's sad. You know, right now in our hospital, we have the two sickest people in the hospital are half a decade younger than me. They have children at home, both of these people, and they are on the heart-lung machine. So basically, there's different stages of intervention that we can do to try to help keep you alive. And most of the time, people hear, they see the little cannula that she had in her nose. That's called a high-flow nasal cannula, where we're trying to force as much oxygen into your lungs as possible. Then you can go to what we call a non-invasive, like a BiPAP machine. You hear people say, I wear my CPAP mask at home. Those types of forms. And then we get to the ventilator that people traditionally think about with the thing that looks like a straw that goes into your mouth. And then we have persons that have the ventilator plus our ECMO machine. And our ECMO machine is a heart-lung machine. It's basically, if you think about dialysis, it's a machine that takes all your blood out, puts it into an oxygenator that forces oxygen into your blood, and then puts the blood back into your body. And that's what these two persons are on right now. They're on the ventilator plus this machine to try to force as much oxygen into the blood as possible. And even despite that, their children will probably be orphans. And this is what really bothers me, because it doesn't have to be this way. If you're vaccinated, your likelihood of dying is reduced by 11 times. And I can't stress that enough, because the people that we have in our hospital right now, they are of that age of where they have kids at home. They have a full life ahead of them. And yeah, and within days it's gone.
11 times. So that protection is real.
Yeah, it's very real. And it's not only for death, you're 5 times less likely to be infected, you're 10 times less likely to need to be hospitalized, and 11 times less likely to die. And I don't understand at this point, to be honest with you. I'm not sure what people are waiting for. We've now had the first case of coronavirus was January 20th, 2020. It's been 21 months of us learning about this, right?
Yeah.
We are a few months away from 2022. We've had now my first vaccination shot was December the 15th of 2020. It's been at least 9 months 10 months that the general population has been able to get vaccinated. And so I'm not sure what additional research is necessary for you to know that your life matters, that you do not have to die, that you don't have to go through that severe illness, and that you have loved ones that are left in the wake of if you do pass away.
Yeah.
What about them? Yeah.
And we're seeing even now, and I mean, we saw a couple of celebrities call out, say that, I need to do more research. Or in one case, one said, and I'll call him out, Busta Rhymes. He's like, basically he's with that conspiracy theory about the vaccine. And you had another celebrity just yesterday refused to attend the Met Gala, saying that she needed to do more research. What research, Dr. Hilton? The vaccine, as you said, 11 times less likely to die, 5 times less likely to require hospitalization. What other research could there be? You are a professional. You know this stuff. Tell us what we're missing.
Yeah, I was particularly, to be honest with you, I was particularly frustrated with Busta Rhymes in that he was in a packed out concert arena of where people are paying to see him. And the number of persons that got infected from that concert and the number of people who unfortunately lost their lives to that concert is if it's more than one person, it's too many. And what particularly frustrates me is that, he's over half a century old. Over half a century old. And in the last month, in August alone, 30,000 children were hospitalized due to COVID. You're cutting the lives of kids that hopefully by the grace of God will live to see the age that you are. So to have that irresponsible language where you're going home to a mansion that has space and these persons are going back home, that if they get infected, they're infecting their entire family. It is reckless. It is, and it's insanely selfish. And I would encourage you, if I posted on Twitter, Busta Rhymes, Cam Newton, Nicki Minaj, if you want to sit down and have a discussion, I will gladly talk to you. But to have a platform where you reach millions of persons and you say words, then words have power, that you influence other people to make a decision that could potentially kill them, it would make it hard for me to sleep at night.
Yeah. And, Dr. Hilton, let me ask this. Is this like the people that are still undecided on election day? Do you think we've reached a point where most of the people that will willingly get the vaccine have already done so?
Yeah, I do. I think, we're going to see, feel a fallout that stretches for generations as it relates to this politicalization of this pandemic. And what do I mean by that? We know that there are persons, 80 million people who held out from getting the vaccine. And we know that Donald Trump, he had 74 million people that voted for him, or I can't remember the exact number. But in knowing that, it kind of matches up. And we know that not all persons who are in America can actually vote. So we know those 80 million, they have children who they will likely not vaccinate. And it's not only for COVID-19, but my biggest fear is that because those persons are now so rooted in this conspiracy theory of the government is trying to poison us, the government is trying to do this to us, that it won't only be for the COVID-19 vaccine that they're not going to take, but it's the measles, mumps, and rubella. They're not going to vaccinate their children for the influenza, and we're heading into flu season, and we know the deadly cost that flu can cause. But I think they're going to be paranoid, and they're going to say, well, if I get this flu shot, they probably put the COVID-19, vaccine in that too. And I don't want that. And so we're going to see this winter, I fear, will be a much deadlier winter than we had last winter. And we have to remember back in January, February, we were burying 4,000 people a day. That is an insane number to think about. The video you showed, it talked about Florida and said that nearly 25,000 people died. Well, to give you that number, that's one person every 34 seconds. Wow. One person dying every 34 seconds. And again, when you're looking at who's not vaccinated, we did a fantastic job early on in December and January and February of vaccinating those persons that are 65 and older. The older people, they've been vaccinated. Their likelihood of dying is much reduced because of that. It's that 17 to 35-year-old group that's been holding out. Those are the ones that we are seeing in the hospital on ventilators, begging for anything to help them feel like they're not suffocating, because this is it's a fast death in that it happens over, the course of 7 to 10 days. But I don't know if you've ever tried to hold your breath for more than 2 minutes, but try it out and see how that feels. It is a miserable thing. And when you see people in the hospital and you look in their eyes and you know that even despite my ventilator being on, the fear, because it's like breathing underwater. That's the reality. And we need to get serious about that, because I think in the medical, we've been placating, we've been, pacifying and trying to play nice. But it's like, if you think about the risk you're putting your 8-year-old, 10-year-old child in because you don't want to get vaccinated, imagine what it feels like to see them and you're holding them underwater and they're trying to breathe. That's what COVID does to our children. And we're burying kids. Michaela Robeson, that was in Mississippi, 8th grader, 8 days after school start, dead. There's no going back from that.
And, Michelle Madison writes in that her grandchildren are headed back to 2nd grade in pre-K. Even though they are 7 to 4, she says she's still a bit nervous because they can't get vaccinated. And it brings me to what we had Dr. James Hildreth on last week, the president of Meharry Medical College. And we asked him that question and wanted to get your thoughts, as Michelle Madison does. Do you think that opening the schools for children to attend right now is a mistake?
It's absolutely reckless. And I say that my little sister is actually a principal at an elementary school. And, we've had several discussions. I have a 6-year-old niece that literally just had a birthday on Sunday. And it's one of those things that we know that under 18, only 14% of the kids under 18 are fully vaccinated. And yet kids the first week of September were 26% of the cases of new COVID that we had documented. We know that in those low vaccination states, like South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, you name it, all along the Gulf, we know that children in those places are 4 times more likely to be infected. We know that in the month of August alone, 30,000 kids were hospitalized. Like I said, that's 1,000 kids a day going to the hospital seeking care. We know that the CDC released a study that showed in those schools that don't mandate masks and don't mandate vaccines, that children are 3.4 times more likely to die. And when we're thinking about, in particular, Black and brown communities and Black and brown schools, I came from a single parent home. I went to an elementary school where our parents were just barely getting by, and all of us had free lunch. I mean, that was the environment I grew up in. So I know when I say that the lack of resources that goes to a school, I know that to slow the spread of COVID in any situation, you need to be able to spread out. You need good ventilation. You need to have good masks, quality masks, and you need to have people vaccinated. Well, unfortunately, in the elementary school that I think of, that I went to school in, when you talk about ventilation, they say, oh, open windows. We didn't have windows in my classroom. So what window do you want me to open? Are you supplying those schools then with HEPA filters? Are you supplying those schools with carbon dioxide readers? And carbon dioxide when you breathe out carbon dioxide. And when you're having surgery, I literally measure how much carbon dioxide you're breathing out to make sure that we're breathing for you adequately. And so we can detect the amount of carbon dioxide that's in a room to see, is this room being cleared out? Is the air being filtered out adequately? So are we supplying those classrooms with that? Are we giving those students quality N95 masks or K95 masks for the little kids to wear? Yeah, are we doing those things before we say all schools can go to open? Because what we know is that the top 10% of the wealthiest school spend 10 times more in their budget than the poorest 10%. What we know is that 1 in every 4 Black ninth graders have more than 40 people in their classrooms. They cannot spread out. And that's the risk that these governors, because their children are in public school, their children, they are not public, they're in private school. They have resources. They don't have to worry about whether or not they can spread out because there's only 10 kids in their class. Those are the people that are in charge of making the rules that filter down to our kids in our community, which is why votes matter. Health is very much political. And you can see how the policies that are written are literally centering those who are privileged, because those are the persons that vote and those are the persons that give them money to their campaign. I mean, people who are not privileged also vote, but do we have $1,000 every election season to throw money into their pockets? No. And so that's where they center those policies.
And let's take a moment now. It's better late than never, right? To bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publicists Association, the ever busy Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Hey, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacey Brown, and good morning, Dr. Hilton. Thank you so much for being with the Black Press.
Good morning, Dr. Chavis. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So, Dr. Hilton, so Bobby Henry down in Florida, he's at the West Side Gazette. He's the publisher of the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale. He makes the comment, Florida's governor is one of the most prolific proponents of stupidity and Trumpism that is in leadership. And I know you've taken issue with Governor DeSantis on some of the things and more recent things he said. And you talked about leadership and you talked about Trump. You know, how is it that we're still being guided in some instances, or are many people who are not getting vaccinated, are they really being guided by politics still?
They're being guided by politic personality. Let's say it that way. Because I think if you actually ask them what policies are being written, they don't know. So it is a cult-like following. When you think about Jonestown and other cults that literally had people lead themselves to death, that's what we're seeing. And that's what makes no sense to me with the GOP. Because in order to be elected, you have to have voters that are alive to vote. But the persons that are dying, when we're thinking about the evangelical community, and I was very much raised in the church, and I very much am a firm believer in God and Christianity. And at the same time, just like God told us about Noah and the ark, and when the first raindrop happened, if you weren't on the boat, it was too late. When COVID touches your throat, if you don't have the vaccine, it's too late. And with these GOP leaders that have allowed people to buy into this notion early on in the pandemic to say, hey, don't trust anything you hear. That's just the liberal left trying to fool you. Now they're trying, and you hear Trump got booed because he told people to get vaccinated. You see how Ron DeSantis and Abbott, they're like, well, yeah, you should get vaccinated, but you could also do this, because they know they have to walk it back, because again, your people are the one that's getting infected now. Like I said, I think I said the previous time, if you're looking at the death count of white people in particular, around the holidays, it seriously jumped. It used to be about 9,000 to 15,000 white people were dying per month before November. But after Thanksgiving, it went to 27,000. After Christmas, it went to 42,000. After New Year's, it went to 47,000. And between February the 2nd to March the 2nd, 58,000 white people died. It was that big of jump, not because the system changed, because we had a vaccine that was available to keep people alive at this point, but it was because of behavioral choice change They were protesting the election. They were burning masks in revolt. They were, saying, give my freedom. I'm going to travel, regardless. And it literally is killing them. And so what we see is that the racial health disparity has gone from Black and brown people being 6 to 8 times more likely to die down to 2.8 times, which is still too much and too high. But the reason why it's reduced is not because Black people are dying less, but it's because white people are dying more. And so it's not a political move that is actually beneficial to them at all. So, yeah.
Dr. Chavis, it is for this reason why the Black press is honoring Dr. Hilton this week, right? I mean, it's just amazing how she can just break it down. And how do you go against that, Dr. Chavis?
Well, absolutely. We salute and congratulate, and we certainly want to extend our appreciation to Dr. Ebony Hilton for not only being clear and being outspoken, but consistent. She was one of the first to join our NMPA coronavirus task force, along with Dr. James Hildreth, who's also going to get an award on Thursday. But I just want to say, Dr. Hilton, before you go, sometimes you'd be surprised, we get questions from some people, but some brothers and sisters in our own community. So why is the Black press continuing to focus on COVID-19? Can you just speak to the importance of why the Black press does what it does, and why it's so important that we get out the clarity of the message that you and other doctors who really know the truth and trying to protect our community as best we can? Can you just speak for a moment about the importance of the Black press?
Yeah, the importance is that if we won't speak up for us, who will? Because like I said, the problem when we're looking at the society in totality is that it does center privilege. It always has centered privilege in our policies and our information that is shared. Even if we're looking at the rollout that Biden's plan has now, that is trying to push for these vaccine mandates, even the way it's written literally does still center the privilege. When we're talking about, you have to be vaccinated in order to fly. You have to be vaccinated to go into some of these spaces. Well, again, if I don't have money, I'm not flying anywhere right now. And when we're talking about even the way that it's being rolled out for these vaccines to go into the Krogers, the Walmarts, or to the hospital centers, again, Kroger's, you're 4 times less likely to have a grocery store in your community if you're in a Black and brown community. When we're talking about, hospital settings, you're twice as likely to not have a hospital in your community if you're in a Black and brown community. And so people that are in elected positions, even if they have the best meaning, the privileged are centered. And the Black press media, Dr. Chavis and you, Stacey, like the only way we're going to have advocates is for us to actually be informed and well aware, so we can go and advocate for our own communities. And who is talking about the fact that Black children are 2 to 5 times more likely to die from COVID-19, depending on the location they live in? Who else is talking about that besides us? And the reason why we talk about it, because we see our reflection in the mirror. I'm no different than any other Black person in America. My risk is the same as yours. When it comes down to it, it's not like they separate us out, right? So when I think about the fact, again, that Black children are 2 to 5 times, I'm thinking about my 6-year-old niece that I want to see to live to the ripe age of 48 before I pass away. That's the thing that we think about and why we're so passionate, because we match the demographic of those that are disparaged. Yeah, and
you see where I know we're running a little late, but Bobby Henry points out that Florida cities, counties, and that mandate COVID-19 vaccine for government employees will face fines. Governor Ron DeSantis says government agencies will be fined $5,000 per infraction, and that brings a question that Norman had as well. He says, isn't it true, Dr. Hilton, that most of these elected officials are vaccinated, even though their message to constituents wouldn't reflect this?
Yeah, fully vaccinated. And that's why I say we live among psychopaths. And I don't hesitate when I say that. The reason why I particularly go off of DeSantis is my father lives in Tampa, Florida. And so the policies that he passes literally jeopardizes my dad, and I'm a daddy's girl, and I do call him daddy. And so, that's the reason why I don't take my foot off the gas when I let him know that what he's doing should be held as criminal. The fact that he's fudged the numbers in order to pad the numbers to make him look like a better candidate for his presidential run. The fact that he is now taking donor money and promoting Regeneron stations. And Regeneron is a monoclonal antibody that is fantastic. That truly, if you've been exposed, if you've been exposed, you can go and get the monoclonal antibodies, and it does reduce your likelihood of having that severe COVID. Now, the problem that I have is that we don't want you to have to get exposed first. What other disease process are people signing up to get infected? Who's running out saying, I want to get infected by HIV because now we have therapies that might help me to stay alive? No one. So why are we playing this game of where we're saying, well, I might just get COVID? For what purpose? Especially when we know that if we're talking about the survivors of COVID, that between 10 to 30% of persons who have COVID end up having long COVID, which is the way that, if you think about falling and scraping your knee, how you get a scar there. Whenever you get COVID, there's an inflammatory process that happens on the inside that you can't tell it from the outside. Just like the young lady who was in that video struggling to breathe. She didn't look like she was struggling to breathe, but she was dead within a few days, because what happens on the inside is a scarring of your organs, is a scarring of your lungs, is a scarring of your heart, is a scarring of your kidneys that you can't physically see. People can't walk by you and know that you're sick like that. And the question is, what happens when that scar permanently changes the way your brain works? We see people now calling it COVID brain, where they can't keep their attention span. They're having seizure activity. When we do autopsies on persons, we're seeing their brain resembles that of a person who has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis, and they're 30 years old, right? Wow. How is that scar going to affect you for the rest of your life, even if you do survive? And especially when we're thinking about our children, if they're 10 years old, they can't afford to go through that heavy hit of life at that decade and not expect to see their life be shortened by 2 or 3 decades, and not to see the age of 50, 60 years old because of a choice that we made as adults for them when they were in elementary school.
Dr. Chavis, she said by 2 or 3 decades. She didn't say 2 or 3 years or months, decades.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, that's how serious, that's how deadly, and that's how life-changing COVID-19 can be, not only for individuals, but for whole families. And I think Black Americans, we cannot afford to allow ourselves to continue to be exposed to this deadly virus. No one should participate in their own genocide. And that's what's happening in Florida. That's what's happening in Texas. That's what's happening in Georgia and other states that are taking this too lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Hilton, we are so grateful to you that you continue to give the Black press access to your knowledge, your concern, your outright love for the Black community. We really have the utmost respect for you. And we have a nice surprise for you and all the awardees on Thursday. Tune in, everyone, beginning at 3 o'clock, because Regina Bell has something for you guys that you're going to love, Dr. Hilton. All of our honorees, yourself, Dr. Hildreth, the Olympic champion, Allison Felix is an awardee, as well as Senator Cory Booker, Congresswoman Cori Bush as well. And we also have Senator Raphael Warnock. So tune in beginning at 3 o'clock. The awards reception is at 7 p.m., but tune in beginning at 3. We got Gabrielle Union coming up. We have a great surprise for our awardees from the great Regina Bell. So you have to tune in beginning at 3 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday, www.virtualnmpa2021.com. You guys more than deserve it, especially you, Dr. Hilton. We hold you in such high esteem, and everyone should, including Nicki Minaj, including Busta Rhymes, and all of the rest. And Dr. Chavis, there should be some sort of And perhaps at some point, the Black press can have a town hall with Dr. Hilton, with Nicki Minaj, Busta Rhymes. We get it all out in the open. Black people need to be well informed, and we're well informed every time we have Dr. Hilton on.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're going to continue to work closely with Dr. Hilton and all her colleagues. Shout out to all of your colleagues there at the University of Virginia. And listen, thank you again. We salute you, we appreciate you, and we congratulate you on your tremendous success.
Well, thank you all for having me. Like I said, it's one of those things we've been screaming, but the Black press was the first organization that said we're listening. And yeah, it was really lonely out there for a while because we felt like no one cared about what was happening. So it is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, the work you and Dr. Bell and Dr. Webb, Doctors Webbs, and the rest of your colleagues have done throughout. I mean, you persevered for all of us, and we appreciate you. Dr. Ebony Hilton, you're a NNPA Leadership Award recipient this year. Tune in at www.virtuennpa2021.com on Thursday, beginning at 3 o'clock. Let it be known. Remember this, life can give you 100 reasons to cry, but you can give life 1,000 reasons to smile. Everyone stay safe. Get vaccinated if you can. Wear a mask, social distance. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow.